Okay, perfect. And also, I just want to start by saying thank you for not only for giving us this amazing opportunity to talk with, our very big and great and wonderful campus leader, but then also, just for all of the support that you and your leadership has done for our faculty and staff, for all of us as students. I think I can say for all of us leadership fellows that, being a student is hard during this time, but then it's made so much easier when you go to an amazing place like Elon. I've watched so many of my other friends really struggle, but I've only felt wonderful love and support, which is, of course, largely, done by with a precedent that you have set, but then also through all of the amazing faculty and staff members too. So thank you for all of that.
Well, thank you.
Of course. And just to kind of get things started at a very general note, how might we have to adapt as student leaders during this time of crisis and when we're leading in a virtual standpoint?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of thinking about what's first in times of crisis. And I think one of the things that's on my mind, particularly with this type of crisis versus a weather event or some other external force. I mean, this is actually a health issue, a public health issue, which is enormously scary. I think health in general, people feel very powerless generally about health. That they watch their loved ones become afflicted with disease and without control. And so to have a public health crisis going on at this scale and to see it affect, I mean, the only group that we really haven't seen this impact are young children. We're seeing young adults all the way in, and largely the elderly and at-risk population, but even young adults coming down with coronavirus, and also this virus in particularly is easy to it's contagious and easy to spread, and so we all are playing a part in it, right? And what happens next? And so I have really done a lot of thinking about the human element of this. I have seen the stressors of this in people's response, and people in crisis, I think, have a range of response, and some behavior is very predictable, but when people are afraid, it can become particularly unpredictable. And so I think having a lot of compassion that people are afraid, that the things that make them feel normal and in the lane, so to speak, and control in life have all been upended. And particularly for our students, faculty and staff too, but our students, unlike our faculty and staff, are faced with shifting their learning, and that learning is being delivered by 4 or 5 different people, each using different styles, right? And I am really thinking a lot about our seniors, who not only have this semester where the learning was uprooted, but they also probably had job offers in play, interviews, and we're thinking about the next phase of their life, and that's also been upended. So there's just so much uncertainty. And so being really compassionate about the uncertainty, and that part of the work in managing a crisis is helping people feel, giving them choices on what we can control, giving, like that, the pass fail decision, I think, was really important, because it gave people, okay, that's going to give me more options during this uncertain time. So that's just one example of trying to give people some choices during this period of so much uncertainty.
Yeah, absolutely. The article you shared talked a lot about this balance between management and leadership, which is kind of, an ongoing discussion of, getting down to the nitty-gritty, getting the things done that need to get done, kind of that side of management, but then also encouraging and uplifting those that we're working with. And obviously, since, the space that we're leading in is changing, the every like external factor has adjusted, how might this also very much adjust the balance between our management and our leadership?
Yeah, so I have at Elon, I very much have a reliance on a team of people and a cross-functional team of people. So we, about 21 days ago, stood up our Emergency Operations Center. And that had never been activated in the university's history. So think about that. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but that is a cross-functional team of about 30 people who are meeting every day to manage this from an operational perspective. Literally, things like how many students, for example, it was difficult for international students to leave campus. And so we have a little bit less than 50 international students who cannot get home that are here on campus. So we need to make sure those students are fed, that they have access to health care. So just, I mean, that's one example of many of the operational pieces. You can imagine how important a stable infrastructure for our network is right now. Does everybody have access to the internet? Does everybody have a robust signal? Does everybody know how to use WebEx or Zoom or whatever the platform of choice is? So, because we cannot deliver the mission of the university. And so one of the things that in this time between management and vision is that I have a mission statement that's helping me guide our decision making. And I have to tell that because I have emergency operations, I have time to keep the team focused on the long view. And to keep our head above the water, because we've got another team working on the tactical pieces. So keeping the vice presidents and myself operating on the long view for the good of the institution. So around our table, we're talking about the incoming class, because this happened right in the middle of your spring admissions events where students are coming back to make a decision. So we had to quickly convert that campus visit to a virtual campus visit. So that just got launched yesterday. It's called Life as a Phoenix. So, but 3 weeks ago, when you look at that, you're going to see they had to shoot a lot of videos. They had to go do aerials, fly-throughs of residence halls and things like that normally would be on the tour. But we made that a first priority because we need that fall class to form and arrive so that we can, we need to embrace that the future's coming back, that, it's going to be normal. We're going to have that class return. And to all those seniors in high school are also experiencing a lot of emotional upheaval too. So we quickly got working on that. And to be honest, I'm working now on the fall class of the 21.
Wow.
Because what also happens right now, and I don't know if you did this in your classmates, but during spring break of your junior year, that is normally when you're visiting college campuses. And so we anticipate that we're going to see a lot of traffic in July and August once the travel is allowed. So we're already thinking about, okay, what do we need to do to get the campus ready for, 15,000 visitors later in the summer months.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned this a little bit, and the article you shared also dived in deeper into this long view and preparing for the long view and how much value that can really have in the spaces we're in. But also at the same time, this crisis that we're facing is ever changing. So how can we prepare for the long view when we're not quite sure how long the long view might be?
It is. This is really unusual because the virus itself is dictating the timeline, right? Everybody wants it to be over, but the virus is dictating exactly. And I've noticed more and more analogies to war. We're at war with this virus. And I think that that's an interesting framework as well. It is, but the truth is that one of the things I can do for this community is hold up a mirror to the future, right? So I do think, even though we may not know if it's next month or the next month, we know that shortly, right? It won't be too long before we're back. But the world will look different. But the thing that will be constant are Elon values. So a lot of what I'm doing is asking and I do read our university mission statement regularly to keep reminding me, because the way it's written is Elon University makes a commitment to the student, and then it makes a commitment to the way in which we deliver our educational model. So it's actually a series of about 5 commitments that we make. So I always am looking at that to say, how does this commitment look in this environment? For example, I made a commitment that we would continue to pay our student workers, because the health and well-being of our community is first and foremost in that mission. And so, your every decision you're making, you're looking at that mission statement, and that really preserving that mission is really the task, right? Is how is our mission going to look, and then getting people to have the hope about, okay, when we're on the other side of this, we know I know things will be different. It's like the recession that we had back in 2009. And then I was also on campus when the World Trade Center was attacked. So, and the world does look different than it did on September 11, 2001 or October 2008. And there will be a history written about the events that are unfolding right now. And so it's really important that we have our mission at the center of this story that's unfolding.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my own research and digging up, because I love kind of thinking about this whole question of how are things going to adapt and change. A lot of the reoccurring ideas that I've seen is this idea or the value of gifts, gifts in any like a virtual way, or gifts in support and feedback. So how can we as student leaders kind of virtually support and uplift those that are in the same spaces as we are?
So as leaders, we set the tone, right? So I think that one of the important gifts we give as leaders back to our community is making ourselves available to them for conversation and to reach out. So I've done a lot of emails just saying, hey, if you need to talk, I've said, hang in there. If you need to talk, I'm here to talk. So attending to the strength of our community, I think is one of the key things that you all could do as student leaders. I also think helping your classmates and your organizations have perspectives about what could we do right now to be in service to, and whether it's Elon, whether it's let's say your Habitat for Humanity, or or as an individual, what can we do to be in service to the needs of the communities that we support right now? And I actually think that work helps us get out of the thinking, our woeful thinking, doomsday thinking. I think when we recognize that we can make a difference, right, and we see ourselves making a difference, then that creates a whole effect of positivity and recognizing, this is scary, but we're in it. And one thing that gives me great comfort is just the feeling, yeah, everybody's in this. Everybody's going through this together. So when I'm at my house and staying at home and following the shelter in place orders, I'm thinking, yep, everybody else is doing this too. Yeah. And that common experience, I think, gives it a lot of value. So as student leaders, just that being there and making ourselves available to our colleagues and our classmates, and then asking ourselves, what is something I could do to help during this time?
Yeah, I think it has been very powerful to kind of think of the unity that has kind of come with this, all of this experience that, how would we ever have anticipated that this is what, our second half of the spring would look like. But I think, having that sense of, yes, we are all in this together and we are all going to make it through is something that has been very powerful, and definitely give us a lot of strength in a time of many different unknowns. You started to touch on this just a little bit, but obviously once we move everything to an online virtual setting, we hit large barriers of problems with equity with many of our students, both on Elon's campus or students all around the globe, of lack of access to laptops or computers, if they have none available in the household, or even if an adult in the household has one that needs to be used for work, or a safe home to go
That
to.
sounds like it may have happened to you.
Right.
I heard that with some of the cable providers that you can only have one video chat going at a time from your house, that it actually will bottleneck the houses. So if you have two parents trying to work remotely and then children trying to do their educational, that literally the network will not support everybody. But anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly it. Plus, access to food. I mean, the list just goes on and on. And I know, I was reflecting on this earlier. I'm an elementary education major, and so immediately my mind goes first off to my third graders in my classroom, and I'm currently in Gibsonville Elementary, and thinking about how their learning is impacted and versus my learning, and just the story continues of equity issues in the world that we are in. So how can we lead from home and support others with a equity mindset, but then also act in ways that are offering full opportunities to those that, in the spaces that we are in, but then also those who might have greater issues with equity that we might not be able to do as much for.
I have to tell you that I think this is complicated about equity because as we think about, everybody has this virus in front of them, but not everyone has equal opportunity of being infected. In fact, those whose positions are in healthcare are much higher likely. But even people who are in the food service industry, the hourly people at grocery stores, who are more vulnerable right now because of the work that they're required to do to earn a living. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that's one example. So the impact of the virus is not an equitable impact.
Yeah.
And people, so when I think about my own work here, one of the responsibilities I have at the university is thinking through different scenarios, and then also making it possible for people to give us that feedback, so that there's a lot of feedback loops available to say, yeah, I need the library and I can't get in. I need a laptop and I don't have one, which we have had, I think, several hundred laptops are out. And even adjunct faculty here who work part-time that may not have all the support that our full-time faculty have. So we've been working to make sure all of the part-time people at the university, who we also committed to keeping on fully paid during this period, or also have needs met. So I don't think you can create one size shoe fits all, because the virus is not equitably impacting people in these conditions that we're in. One thing that I do think it's incumbent upon all of us to work toward, and that is responses that, because we're also a private university, we have more choice in front of us than some schools. So public universities are, have to offer exactly the same to every single person, and that's an important model. The private model, we actually can do more for different. We're smaller, so we can be more creative, can pivot. So it's the kind of thing where here's an easy example. that if I have concerns of that, whether or not a student has internet or that, I can actually pick up the phone and call. I can also write a note of support and put it in the mail. So I can think creatively, how can I get that message to that student? Or how can we've been trying to help the county here, where we do have many families on reduced lunches. And so I'm recording a story for the elementary school, you know, that can be listened to by audio or a video story. So, I mean, the dozens of ways, but people have to ask themselves, how can I do that? And then be creative enough to recognize that one size shoe will not fit everyone. So what are multiple ways I can do it? And yes, that may mean it takes more time and it's more work, but it's more it meets the goal of serving people where they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it is important to really think about, you know, okay, this is my audience. How will everyone in this audience be affected in every way? And definitely it is interesting to see, and I'm excited to see what might be the end result after, I think, some views of systems in our world have been, torn open a little bit, and, we're going to look at things differently. And so I'm excited to see what the product of that might be once things have settled down a little bit, and, we're out in our usual workspaces.
I'm glad you said that, Kristin, because I do think it's going to be a lot of innovation and an exciting, you can't unknow something, right? We are all learning, and that learning is going to make us approach whatever our purpose is in life differently after this.
Yes, absolutely. Well, to bring it around on a note more towards you, what are you doing personally to kind of keep your spirits high, keep the positivity during this time, and what might be some recommendations or fun things that you have found for us to do the same?
Well, when I was talking to the Leadership Fellows earlier in the year, I talked about these 3 energies of leadership. And I said, you got to take care of your physical. You have to take care of your emotional and your intellectual. So physically, I have been working very hard not to forego a walk every day.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you that I read this book called Habit by Charles Duhigg. And I think that's how he pronounces his last name, Duhigg. It may be Duhigg, but the book's called Habit. And it was a very popular book. But anyway, he talks about that one of the most powerful things we do is we decide who we are, and we don't ask, will we? We just say, oh, I walk every day. Not should I walk today? Should I not walk today? So I have been adopting this habit. Oh, I'm a walker and I walk every day. And to help me just get my foot out the door. And it's one of those things I never regret doing, because I always feel better, but sometimes those first few steps can be really challenging. And the less mental dialogue I have about it, the more likely I am to do it. Absolutely. And truth be told, one of the CDC things is take a walk, that being outside is actually good, and not putting yourself at risk. So I've been doing the physical. On the emotional piece, I try to get a good night's sleep every night so that I have good emotional energy. There's nothing more likely to create bounce in your emotions than if you're tired. So emotional, but that also means that I spend time with friends, like get on the phone. My daughter has and I have videos that, like, I watched the movie Emma this weekend because we're big Jane Austen fans, and then we talked about it. So it's fun things like that to keep your emotional balance when you're trying to make really hard decisions about Elon's future. It's really helpful to take a break and watch it.
Absolutely.
And then last is the intellectual, and this is the piece where I do need to stay current on what's happening and events, but what I don't need to do is to mire in constant news coverage, and I really think that's unhealthy. And I'm not on social. I'm on social media twice a day. I check it in the morning and in the evening, and I check in the news the morning and the evening. But during the day, I'm really focused on making positive change. So
Mhm.
I'm working on learning and moving forward goals, not mired down in, in the day
Mhm.
of and the news media and all of those things. So physical, emotional, and intellectual. And I have found that those three energies really do make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love it because my spot up here. So if you can't, I am surrounded by
I
all of
see a
the like,
lot of medals and
yes,
ribbons. So
yeah.
what are those for?
I was a cross country runner, so that's
Oh,
definitely
very
helped
good.
me out. I love being able to do my runs every day. And I'm excited that it's April now. The weather's gonna get a little bit
Yes.
nicer here
Yeah.
in Ohio. But I also love because I have a window right in front of me, and it's been really fun because I live in a fairly small neighborhood, and it's usually fairly quiet. But it's special because I've seen so many people out and about riding bikes or scooters and walking with dogs and family members, and it's kind of cool. The neighborhood has come alive in this time, and I think those are special moments. My family and
Yeah.
I started doing family walks all together, and we love kind of that time. And it's also nice to get some fresh air,
Yes.
get out of the
Yeah.
house just a little bit in a safe way. Absolutely. All right, well,
Really good.
yeah, well, thank you again for all of this. This is really special and a really amazing time to kind of have a dialogue like this of, how are we adjusting in this time? And I think this will really open up the door towards great conversations. We are dividing into smaller groups, so we don't have 120-person Zoom call.
Yeah.
And going to engage in dialogue about what we can do as hearing all this information and taking steps forward, and how are we taking care of ourselves, how are we taking care of those around us. So I'm really excited to use this to kind of spark that dialogue further, so thank you for that.
Well, thank you for thinking of asking me. And I do hope you find that reading useful, because I do
Mhm.
think it offers a good roadmap for why vision and future oriented leadership is really critical in the middle of a crisis like this one, where it feels like the daily tasks are so daunting,
Mhm.
because it really helps that whole community remember, oh no, we're coming back.
Yeah,
And we're going to be stronger and better on the other side of this because of the lessons
absolutely.
learned through this.
Absolutely. And it's going to be a very different time. Things will feel back to normal, but then at the same time, like we said, many things will be different. And it'll be interesting to see, yeah, that product of
Yeah.
what's to come. Once everything kind of settles back in, I already have a list in my head of the first place I'm gonna go and eat out. Because I've also found I've taken so many things for granted for so long. I sometimes, when I get to check my privilege, the first thing that doesn't normally come to mind is being able to eat out at a restaurant. But now it is something that I think, wow, I will never see it the same way ever again.
Or just go to the beach. I mean, all the beaches are closed. And I mean, here in North Carolina, that's a big thing. And, people are used to that. I mean, so many things that we just take for granted. School, K through 12 school to be closed here basically for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And families are homeschooling. I mean, so, as a future teacher, that people are like, thinking that there's no way they can do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't think people imagined a public school system where it stopped for a period of time and went online. So, I mean, I agree, big changes, but we're learning so much in the middle of this. And I already have a sense that we'll be a better country because of this that we're finding all these common ground areas for the country.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you again.
Thank you very much. Take
Special.
care. Good
You
luck. Let me know
too.
how it goes.
I will for sure.
Okay. All
All
right.
right,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.